We're in trances, going all to different places, different planets. Watch your aura pass me by, losing balance. What if we run out of time and second chances? Empty-handed, you left us high.
Thank you for watching Let's Talk with Sandra. Today, I have the honor and privilege of interviewing Mr. Tony Santana, bank manager from Northwest Indiana, born in Gary, Indiana, and we'll go from there. Tony, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with me. Let me just say, you are my first non-Black interviewee.
All right.
And I really wanted that so I can get a different perspective,
Sure.
like what it was like for you. So let's start with, what year were you born?
Wow. I was born in 1972 in Gary, Indiana, at the Methodist Hospital, right on Harrison, I believe, right downtown Gary.
Right downtown Gary. In 1972. Tell me a bit about your parents.
Well, my parents, not African American. However, I am Mexican and Puerto Rican. So what that means is, Mexican, come from Texas by way of Mexico, my mom, and my dad was born on the great island of Puerto Rico.
Wow.
So, there's a lot of little African descent down in Puerto Rico. So, and we're Spanish. We're a good rainbow. We're a good mix of people. So, they call me a 50-50. So some say I don't like myself. Some say I really like myself.
So you're 50-50.
Yeah, Mexican, Puerto Rican.
So where in Gary were you raised?
Well, that's a loaded question, because I was raised probably in 5 or 6 different places. I mean, I've lived, mom and dad, they never married. But they, it was me and my mom for a while, and then dad came back to be with us and took us out of Third and Fillmore. I think I was on 3rd and Fillmore, 7th and Polk.
I know what that is.
And then we moved to Glen Park when I was 7 years old to 39th and Washington.
Okay.
And that's where my mom and dad kind of reared me from there.
What school?
In Glen Park.
In Glen Park. What school did you attend? Elementary.
Elementary, I went to St. Mark Catholic School. I was born and raised Catholic. I was an altar boy. I was, Mr. Catholicism, if you will. Yeah. And just, it was a great education. Left St. Mark probably in the 6th grade, 7th grade, and I went to Harrison Junior High in Maryville. Okay. Had an opportunity to go to school there for a couple years. Yeah.
I have a question. When you were attending elementary school, was it a mixture of nationality in the school?
Yes.
It was.
Yeah, we had the diversity. Yeah, we had the melting pot. Now that I think about it, we had some Caucasian, we had some Hispanic, and we had some Black.
Okay.
So I was brought up right from the get-go with all races at St. Mark.
All races. That's looking at the changes.
Right.
And then you went to elementary for a short spell in Maryville.
Yes. Then I went to middle school, junior high in Harrison Junior High. What happened was, that's my favorite saying, what happened was, I grew a mustache in the 6th grade.
Really?
Yes.
You're serious?
Unfortunately, sister was the principal at St. Mark, says our boys are clean and shaven. Clean and shaven. So, long and short of it is, my mom says, I'm not going to have my 6th grade boy shave. So I got a little mole right here, so I would cover it up. And she had a friend, her best friend, lived in Maryville, and says, send her to Maryville and use my address. So yeah, I was one of those kids that got kicked out of Maryville schools once they found out I lived in Gary. And I was there. And you talk about diversity, that's interesting in terms of going to school. When I went to Harrison Junior High, it was all Caucasian.
In Maryville?
In Maryville. There were
what
no
year?
Blacks.
What year would that have been?
That would have been, 1982, 83, 84.
In the 80s?
In the 80s, okay?
It was all
now it's called Maryville Intermediate.
Yes.
Then it was Harrison Junior High. And I just really learned how to deal with a whole new culture, a whole new types of people. Yes. There was no Blacks at all.
Wow.
Matter of fact, I was one of the first Hispanics. There were some, maybe a handful of Hispanics.
So how many years did you go to school there?
6, 7, 8. 3 years. And then they found out I lived in Gary. In 9th grade, I went to Gary Lou Walls. I
Gary
am a
Lou
Hornet.
Wallace.
Yeah, and the store, we
what
can
were
write
the
a book
colors?
on those 4 years.
What's the color
They
for
would
New
be
Orleans?
black and gold.
Black and gold.
Black and gold. Gary Roosevelt, my friends from Roosevelt, they have great colors too.
Mhm.
They happen to be black and gold.
So tell me, coming from an all-white
Mhm.
middle school,
Middle school.
now you back in Gary.
Oh boy.
What is that like for you now? Because now you're in a different kind of a melting
Right.
pot, more
Well,
African Americans.
Well, now that's a really loaded question. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you for asking. No, well, the beauty of it is going to St. Mark, growing up in Glen Park,
Mm-hmm.
I was known as Little Anthony in the streets in
Yes.
Glen Park on the west side, Train 9, 39th Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a big ant. So Big Ant kind of took me under his wing. His name was Anthony Palm. They called him Gip.
Okay.
And he was Anthony. So Big Ant, I'm Little Ant.
Mm-hmm.
So we played in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
So I knew everybody in the
Mhm.
neighborhood.
Mhm.
So when I went back to Gary Lou Wallace,
Yes.
I knew them all from school, and they're like,
Yes.
"Hey, Little Ant's at Wallace now." And I'm like,
Yes.
"Yeah." They kind of put me out of Maryville. So I'm here, guys, and I joined the football team and
Did
got engaged right away with sports and just really had a ball.
Really?
And they welcomed me.
Yes.
They were like, "There's that Puerto Rican, that Mexican kid. Let's see what he can do." So I
Yes.
kind of earned my respect
Yes.
on the football field.
Yes.
In all honesty,
Wow.
Yeah.
So what position did you play?
I was a middle linebacker.
Were you?
Yep, and I was offensive guard. And God rest his soul, my best buddy Carlos Aaron. He was Buzz, and I think I was Sting.
Mm.
We were the two linebackers.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
And he passed when I think he was 40 years old.
Wow.
In Indianapolis, he just didn't wake up.
Wow.
But me and Carlos were the linebackers, and we were best friends. We went to prom together with our dates and everything. We had a ball,
Mhm.
and I built a bond. I built a
Yes.
bond with Carlos and Gregory Stevens. They
Mhm.
call him Peanut,
Mhm.
and he was my buddy. We're still really good friends today,
Yes.
and he's in Gary. So, and then we became the biggest gang in the school. Gary Lou Wallace football. We kind of ran the school. We were friends
Really?
with all the guys that did this
Yes.
and that and this,
Yes.
and they were cool too. But they knew we were the athletes,
Gary Lou
and
Wallace.
there were about 60 of us strong, and
Mhm.
50, maybe 50 of us football players, and we just had a ball for 4 years, and that's
Okay.
what kept me on the straight and narrow.
That's absolute. Who was your coach?
Coach Dave Templin. Coach Dave Templin. He ran the wishbone, and
Mhm.
Bruce Bradford was my defense coordinator,
Mhm.
and Ira Judge, Coach Judge, God
Mhm.
rest his soul. I heard he passed,
Wow.
and
Sorry.
he was our offensive lineman coach.
Amazing. Amazing.
And we were some of the best bad boys in the state.
Did you all play against what was it's Lou Wallace and
Gary Roosevelt.
Gary Roosevelt.
We beat Gary Roosevelt. Gary Horseman.
Did you?
Oh God, West Side. God bless them all. Football was a
was
big deal
fun.
back then. I tell you, West
Mhm.
Side was tough. Roosevelt was tough.
Yes.
They were, we had a ball. I mean, we all used to meet out at the
Mhm.
beach
Mhm.
on Friday nights at Marquette Park,
Yes.
the pavilion,
Mhm.
and everybody had their section. Gary
Yes.
Wallace was there. Roosevelt was there.
What did y'all do?
And we just had a couple of soft drinks and, some pizza. I think we used to do Godfather's Pizza, Luigi's Pizza.
Yeah.
And we just had a ball. Every Friday night, we would all go
Isn't
to the
that
beach.
something?
Yep.
Just
And it
no
was cool.
fear of anyone being hurt
Nope.
or
No.
may not make it home.
Yep.
Just clean fun.
Yeah. We had an old saying in Gary. It's still there today. If you don't start any, there won't be any. And we all got along. This was in 87, 88, 89,
79,
and
yeah.
90.
Wow.
Those 4
Those
years.
4 years.
And
once you graduated,
oh yeah.
what did you do? Where did you?
You know
did you,
what? I did not know what I was going to do.
Really?
I wanted to play Division I football
Uh-huh.
or baseball,
Yeah.
and had a great senior year. But
Mhm.
and this is where I was so proud of my friend Lamarck Shackelford. Got to give him a plug. He went pro. He played for the Green Bay Packers, but he, by
Really?
way of Wisconsin, he played for the Wisconsin Badgers,
Mhm.
and I watched him on TV
Wow.
in the Rose Bowl and MVP, and me and him played right next to each other. And I think Jamar Jones, he went on to Iowa, and Arthur Haggard, he went on to play somewhere down south. We had a great group.
These
And
are guys that you went to school with.
Absolutely,
At Lou
all
Wallace.
Gary Lou Wallace
Gary
Hornets.
has so much talent.
Oh, unbelievable talent. And so anyway, I had an opportunity. University of Evansville came to town,
Mhm.
and I visited Butler, Valparaiso, Wabash, DePaul, Had a couple of looks at I think Mexico State, New Mexico State had some interest, but I wasn't really fast, but I was really big and strong, but just not fast. So I ended up going to University of Evansville in Evansville, Indiana, Southern Indiana. Said, we'll let you play baseball and football.
Really?
Yeah, for a year, and then you got to decide.
Was baseball new to you?
No, I was a left-handed pitcher, so I had a decent fastball and decent curveball, and I did, but I was more of a football player.
Yeah,
just
once a football player,
always
gets in
a
the
football
blood,
player, absolutely.
My youngest son
So I went there for 4 years. I went there for 4 years.
What did you study?
I got a degree in business administration, management, and with a minor in international finance. So hence that's how I became a banker. That's how I became a bank manager. Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about when you graduated from college. What did you do?
What did I do after I graduated from college? I celebrated. I traveled, picked up my cousin Joe Santos. We rented a car and we drove down to South Padre Island. That's where my mom's family's from, the border of Mexico. And we had a ball on the beach and just traveled for a month. I think I went out to Virginia to visit a friend. Just had a ball.
Yes.
And then, but it's interesting you talk about that because everybody else was going to. I was just happy to graduate.
Yes.
Because I knew, what am I going to do now? So I came back to Gary with a $60,000 degree from the University of Evansville.
Wow.
And I didn't have any idea what I was going to do. Yes. So I went back to my job, Menards Hardware in Grit in Hammond. And they made me a manager trainee because I had a college degree.
Yes.
Long story short, I'm like, I went to college and I want to do more. Don't get me wrong. Those store managers at Menards, they make good money.
Yes.
But I wanted to use my brain. I wanted to use my skill set. I wanted to use my business acumen. Yes. So I did a lot of things. In the next 7 years, I worked for Prudential. I was a full-fledged agent. Okay. Got 6 licenses. And then I was at Citibank. I was a loan officer. And I worked at Roadway. I managed the union in the South Side, in South Chicago Heights, Fort Heights area.
Okay.
And I was like, and I just always wanted more. And then I finally got the call. Well, there's a bank manager position. At that time, it was National City Bank in East Chicago, Indiana, and Munster. I was kind of interviewing for both of them, and I got that in the year 2000. Wow. And there it is. Here we go. 23 years later, I'm still the bank manager, of many banks. I probably managed over 10 branches throughout Chicago, Northwest Indiana, the region.
So, and I see a red ring, so that tells me you're married.
Absolutely.
Tell me about your wife or your man. No. I love love stories.
Now that's a loaded question. In one of those jobs, when I left Menards, I went to Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Okay,
and
really?
And I managed the Gary Airport. That's when I used to see Donald Trump fly in.
Really?
I was right there. I used to see him fly in that's when Majestic Star, Mr. Barden, and Donald Trump put their boats in Gary. Wow. And I was the manager of that. Then I got promoted to Hammond Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Then I got promoted to Schererville, Indiana Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And then I had my own truck and my own car, and I'm living on top of the world.
Yes.
Making probably $30,000 a year, maybe. And this was in the year probably 1997, 1998.
Really? 30,000 back then.
Was
good money.
Yeah. So I met my wife. She walked into the bank. She walked into Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Okay.
And she says, I'm here to rent a car. I said, she got more than a car. So yeah, I chased her around. We played, dating game for a year or two, and we got married. And that's when we had our daughter, Sarah. My daughter's 23, year 2023. And then we had my son, Matt, and he's 18. We had him, 5 years later? And they're both doing fantastic. My wife is wonderful. She stayed with me through all these years, through thick and thin, for better and for worse at times.
What is her name?
Her name's Laura.
Laura
Duran. Now she's Laura Santana. Yeah, of course. So she's a teacher. She does real well.
Really?
And she's teaches in Hammond, Indiana, and she loves the children. And she does everything she can to try to help them out. And I said, hey, you married one of those kids like that from Gary, Indiana. I was one of those kids.
What school did she teach at in Hammond?
She's in Hammond, Eggers Middle School. So I don't know if it's a middle school or junior high. Middle school, actually, yeah. Seventh grade English.
Her name sounds familiar.
Yeah. She's been teaching probably 28, almost 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Retirement on the horizon, maybe one day.
Yes.
Soon. Yeah.
So
that's our story.
That's your story. And you graduated. So are you still in Gary?
No, I moved out of Gary. Glen Park. My dad passed away at 61 years old. I found him at home.
Really?
Yeah, that was 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that, 2007, 2008?
Yeah.
Right around there, he passed. And Mom moved to Texas. We have a house. She has a little house in McAllen, Texas, about a border of Mexico. So she's there now. And my wife and I built our own home. We built our dream home in St. John, Indiana.
Did you?
But we went down an interesting road. I mean, we had an apartment in Highland, and we saved up money humbly for 7 years. And we from 2000 to 2007, and we used that down payment to buy a lot and build a home. And so I built a home in St. John 15 years ago.
St. John.
It's south of Cherville.
I think I've driven through. I don't think I've ever stopped,
nice
but I know
community.
it's a beautiful community.
Yeah, nice community.
You know?
Blessed to be there.
Have you been back to Gary lately?
Oh, yeah. I try to go back when I can. I have the house still in Glen Park, so I've got lots of friends that are near and dear to me still, but I don't get back that much. But I just bleed for Gary. Yeah. I'm born and raised, born and bred. There's so much respect for that city because so many great people came from there. Absolutely. And a lot of them left.
Yes.
And they're in Indianapolis, they're in Atlanta, Georgia, they're in Chicago, they're in the suburbs. But a lot of them stayed. Yes. And there's still a lot of great people in Gary. And I want to see them bring it back. Gary, I want to see Gary change for the better.
In the 70s for you. 70s, 80s, what did you see? What was happening in Gary
Well,
what changes have you seen?
In this story, everybody knows. I mean, I was born in 72, but I understand that Mayor Hatcher, which I know, I think he's the first black mayor in the country, right? Mayor Hatcher, 1968, I believe. And he took over, became the mayor, and the mills started to go down, U.S. Steel, and then people started to move out, and the flight, they call it, right? Yes. People left, and when people leave, money leaves, and businesses leave, and it was just tough to keep a city thriving when people were leaving. It could have happened anywhere, and it's happened in other communities throughout the Chicago South suburbs and in other cities. It happens when people move. If it doesn't reinvent itself, things are going to be tough. And I just think the crime got worse. The education got tough. But I'm a proud, Gary Lou Wallace graduate, and we got some great education in Gary.
I must say that, as far as the crime is concerned in Gary, I wouldn't say that it's a high crime like they're shooting and killing kind of thing, which is which you would think, but it isn't, because I live in Gary, and I don't feel unsafe, but I'm not stupid.
Right,
Do you know what I mean?
Watch out for opportunists.
Watch out for opportunities.
Absolutely.
So Gary is not like beware area, and I do see, for me, the future. I feel it in my soul.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've only been in Gary coming up almost a year. Not a question for you. When you lived in Gary, in the neighborhood that you lived in, was there a lot of blacks in your neighborhood? Was it still the neighborhood where?
See, that's interesting. I grew up with probably 95% black, African American.
In your neighborhood?
In my neighborhood, absolutely.
What street again?
It was 39th and Washington.
39th and Washington.
Right by the old community center around Broadway.
Yes.
The big red building. That used to be a high school back in the day, 20s, 30s, 40s, right? That was, and I grew up all black. I grew up African American. And then being Hispanic, Mexican and Puerto Rican, we connected with the community.
Yeah. Was there a large population of Mexican and Hispanics back then?
There was maybe 10% down in the Brunswick area, down on the 5th Avenue, Clark Road, by Westside High School. Yes. There was a nice Mexican population there. And then there was a Puerto Rican population downtown by Horseman. My dad went to Horseman.
Really?
Yeah, my dad went to Horseman. My mom, she went to East Chicago schools. She was an orphan. My mom was an orphan. There were 10 of them in their family, and they went to the East Chicago schools. My mom pretty much grew up in the Carmelite Home for Girls in East Chicago. Yeah. So it was a ward of the state. So, grew up humbly, just me and her again for those 7 years. It was tough. Thank God my dad, he worked at the mill, Inland Steel, then Bethlehem Steel, and ended up with, they called it ArcelorMittal, so
and that's
before
how she
he passed.
ended up in Gary?
Yes. Yeah, they met
She met
in Gary. Yep. The Mexicans and the Puerto Ricans got together back in the days. And here we go. There's a bunch of clubs for Mexican SMM. They had the Caballeros. They had, the Benefica, Central Latino. They had clubs in Gary. And everything was kind of cool. It was cool. Now you don't have clubs or groups that do anything.
Not as many, but it's coming back. And as you saying that, I don't see. Maybe I'm not looking the right place. I don't see a large population of Latino or
Hispanic, Mexican, Puerto Rican
in Gary.
Yeah, they moved out.
I see Hammond. I see them in Hammond
and East Chicago.
East Chicago, but not Gary. But I do see the remnants. I see the restaurants where they were, the Mexican restaurants. And that makes me wonder.
Yeah, that was home. That was home to us. That a lot moved to Portage, Lake Station, Hammond, East Chicago, Crown Point, Maryville, St. John. They moved out for the betterment of their families, better education, newer homes,
absolutely,
better infrastructure. And again, Gary had all that. Gary has all that. It just
has the potential.
The best foundation is in Gary. I mean, they got the best, probably fiber optics. They got we know they got the airport. We know they got Miller Beach. It's still Gary, but it's it's Etna, it's Miller, but it's Gary. And there's so much potential. Now it's just it comes down to leadership. One word. Leadership.
Yes. Leadership. And as everyone knows, and there's no shame in my game, I absolutely admire the leadership of our current Jerome Prince. That's whom I support. And as always, I strongly believe that if he should be able to carry out his dream, we do have the fiber optics, and that's something that came under his administration, and there's so much more. We need, in my opinion, people like you that were raised in Gary, that have a love for Gary, even though you're not there.
Correct.
To come back and support Gary, invest in Gary. Our football players, if they're still able to, all those athletes and who
we're out there.
If they hear the cry and they know the potential, come back to Gary, give Gary some love, invest in something, whether it be a center, whether it be something for our vets, whether it be something for our seniors, whether it be putting up a new building, restoring a new building.
Absolutely.
I think that would be absolutely amazing.
And that's how I came back to Gary. I just got promoted to Sauk Village, Illinois for the bank. And that gives me, my territory now includes Northwest Indiana. And that's how I met you at the chamber.
Yes.
I went to the Gary Chamber. And I was making, Chuck Hughes, this one's for you. This is a plug for you, Chuck. I said, we're at the Gary Chamber event. Why are we in Maryville? But you know what? What a great place. The Chateau banquets.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know what? In Gary, there's a lot of Gary in Maryville, and a lot of Maryville in Gary. I mean, there's a support, there's a network there.
Yes.
And we share the border. And it was great. I mean, what a great event. Absolutely. There were 170 leaders there. And that's what drives me to see Gary come back. I see that people still want to do well in Gary, and they want to reinvest in Gary.
Yes.
So make it happen, Sandra.
And we will. Gary will have its own place of entertainment soon.
Absolutely.
Okay. I thank you.
You're welcome.
I know that you have to get back to work.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time to do this interview with me.
Absolutely.
Honored to meet you. You know, I like to give my love.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Maybe next time we'll talk again, and I'll see you again because I'm part of the Chamber of Commerce.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll come back. I'll come
Thank
back
you
and visit.
so much.
Thank you.
In this episode of Let's Talk with Sandra, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I was absolutely honored to speak with Tony, a great gentleman, in my opinion, someone that has that heart of give back. I can see that. And I thank you. Don't forget to share, subscribe, comment, and as always, peace and love.
We're in trances, going all to different places, different planets. Watch your aura pass me by, losing balance. What if we run out of time and second chances? Empty-handed, you love fast life.